Okay, we're going to go ahead and resume. And a person that I have admired from afar, she runs an organization that has been of great help to this area, and I think she's even starting assisting with like Galveston and a few other counties in her area. Treatment courts carry a heavy responsibility supporting individuals through complex legal and behavioral health recovery challenges. In the coastal Bend area of Texas, we have an organization called Justice Forward. It is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it is helping to meet this challenge by filling critical service gaps for both adult and juvenile participants. I want you to please join me in welcoming the CEO of Justice Forward, Judge Devon Anderson, to explain how Justice Forward partners with treatment court teams, because if you're a judge or if you work under the supervision of a judge, we can't go out and solicit money. So there are a couple of other places around the state that is doing something similar, but this is the cutting edge program. And will explain how she assists courts in upholding their best practice while directly supporting participants and graduates through funding for housing, transportation, educational, vocational training, trauma-informed care, and criminal record relief. And when we get to the end of the presentation, I was reminded if you have a question, please use the microphone because this session is being broadcast. And we want to make sure those of you that are watching from afar can hear the questions and answers as well. Judge Devon Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. All right, it's almost the end of the conference. I want to personally apologize for y'all being located in the middle of the Galleria, which I find is one of the worst parts of Houston. Although really good shopping, I hope you've been on foot since you've gotten to town, because I've tried to travel the loop a couple of times, and I'm at my wit's end, quite frankly. So I will try to use what little influence I have on the commission to change the location the next time we come to Houston. But I digress. I want to preface this by saying that when I have presented to groups who work in courts or who are judges, they get a little discouraged that we even exist. And I don't want you to feel that way, because I think when you hear how this organization got started, you may be inspired to either start one yourself, or maybe you know some people who might be interested in helping you in the ways that we help the courts in Houston, Galveston, and Fort Bend counties. Okay. They wanted, as part of my presentation, application, it's like, how are you going to engage your audience? And I got to use Slido. And of course there's no QR code. I don't know why it didn't come. Never mind. I was really excited about this too, and it's not installed here. There's supposed to be a QR code that you can access Slido and answer these questions. So we're not engaging. Let's see if it'll work at all. No. So never mind. We're going to skip that, although I will do the last one. That's so embarrassing. I'm off to a great start. Okay, can only go uphill from here. Let me just go to the basics. This is our mission that we hammered out after a brutal strategic planning session recently, that we promote recovery rather than incarceration by helping our neighbors through treatment courts achieve health and independence. And we selected the word neighbors really intentionally because of stigma around substance use disorder and mental health treatment and the criminal justice system and being a felon and everything. So we just wanted to kind of point out, albeit not very gently, that, hey, there are neighbors too. This is a funny slide that I left in. I think y'all know what a treatment court is, so I'm going to skim over this one. Let me go ahead and talk about what we have in Harris County, and then I'm going to go through the history of the organization so you can see that this is achievable in your jurisdiction. Right now in Harris County, we have 17 treatment courts. We started with the 4 drug courts in 2003, and we still have 4 drug courts in 2025. Just want to point that out. And they're felony courts, by the way. We have 2 veterans courts, 1 felony and 1 misdemeanor. We have 2 mental health courts. One is mental health issues only, and the other is dual diagnosis. And then we have 4 DWI courts, which are set in misdemeanor, and they take either people with really bad drinking or drug problems or second-time DWIs, so they don't go ahead and get that third one. But you know, just as an aside, there's a kind of an issue going on in Galveston County. I see one of the judges here. That's what reminded me that they are not taking DWI thirds in drug court, even though it's statutorily mandated. They're also trying to get a DWI court there. And I just wanted to kind of put that bug in your ear. If you're not considering DWI thirds in your drug court, you might want to, but you're probably going to have to separate them from the others because they are completely different offenders. You know, first of all, they have cars, and most of them are employed and think they shouldn't even be in the criminal justice system. So they don't really play well with others. So we have 2 kind of split dockets, one DWI third, and then the other is people with substance use disorder. We also have juvenile courts, and these are tremendously effective, by the way. Their recidivism rates are like 2 to 5%. We have an anti-human trafficking court, an anti-gang court, which that is a truly incredible court. They're doing great work there, a drug court, and a mental health court. And then finally, we have a family court, a drug court that's been around forever in family courts for families who get their kids taken away because of substance use disorder in the house. They do a 1-year program, and they can have a much better chance of getting the kids back. Galveston County, we started helping them, I think, in 2022. And we have the Hope Drug Court, and Judge Mallier is here. He started the felony mental health court, as well as he has a mental health docket, too. You want to raise your hand? I mean, I'm just trying to, you know, bring it in. Yeah, because it's good. It's good. Very good. And then Fort Bend County, they have about 8, but this is who we are helping right now. The felony mental health court, the felony drug court, a misdemeanor treatment court. They have a juvenile anti-human trafficking court, and we just recently took on a veterans court. Not sure Judge McCullum's here, but she's at the conference somewhere. This is how we started. This church, Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church, heard about drug courts and thought that they really saw the potential very early on. Because y'all, drug courts in Harris County was a heavy lift, getting people on board. That was the, you know, 1 positive and you're going to prison days. That was like the 2 to 20 for a crack pipe days. And so it was really a matter of changing the culture to get those drug courts accepted. So these guys got together and started writing white papers, which I didn't even know what were, but they're like advocacy papers. That used to be the way to persuade, I guess. And they ended up getting a 501c3 designation and started bringing people on the board from the courthouse. So there were always lawyers on this board. In fact, when I was a defense attorney, after I was a judge, I was like the chair of this board. And all we did, by that time, were raising money by having 1 event a year, usually like a breakfast or a luncheon, and then we would basically take that money and give it to the probation department, which is really a pass-through. You're not supposed to do that, honestly. I shouldn't have even outed us on that, but that's what was happening, pretty much. Mary's looking at me like, Anyway, so we did that for years, and until they hired me in 2019, the end of 2019, because the chair of the board wrote a grant. They hired a consultant. She actually wrote the grant to the Fondren Foundation to try to get money for a part-time executive director. And they got the grant. And I was approached because I was a drug court judge, because I had been the chair of the board, because I didn't want to go to the courthouse and be a lawyer anymore. And they knew that I had taken a nonprofit class at Rice. And so I'm like, yes, even though it was part-time, because I knew that I'd have to raise money to pay myself, right? Which is very motivating, by the way. And so I started, and they hired me because they wanted to first of all, make it a real nonprofit with like a budget and like bylaws and things like that, but also to expand our assistance to help all the other people, all the other courts in the courthouse that are treatment courts. And so we did that actually during the pandemic. And really, that was one of our best years financially. We did really well with grants in the pandemic, but we hired a marketing company that gave us a huge nonprofit discount, and they helped us design a logo and a website and helped us with our new name, because we were the Harris County Drug Court Foundation, but if we were going to help more than drug courts, we needed to be more inclusive. So we picked Justice Forward, and I don't know what my next slide is. That's not the one I wanted. Anyway, so we were off and running. And then I've raised enough money now to hire the amazing Mary Covington as the program director, who's on the Texas Association of Specialty Courts board and has been. There's like a state award named after her. I'm just going to go ahead and love on her for a minute. If y'all have any, I shouldn't do this, but if you need any help, she's the man, so to speak, because she helped start the drug courts, the mental health courts, and the veterans courts in Harris County. Then she retired, and I grabbed her, and she's helped. Now she's working with us, and we have a .75 assistant. So there's 2.75 employees of Justice Forward. So I shouldn't have even done this either, because y'all know what best practices are. I think I did this presentation. I'm sorry I didn't edit it better. I thought I had, but everybody's familiar with All Rise, the national organization, yes? If you're shaking your head no, you're in trouble. You need to know this, because they've done decades of research for best practices, and I know you probably don't have them memorized, but what we've tried to do is craft our assistance to help courts achieve best practices when you're financially kind of unable to do that. Like the judge said, you can't solicit money yourself. So I'm skipping that, and I'm going to go to what we actually do. We raise money. We raise money from foundations, private foundations, and we have 2 events a year, 2 fundraising events, to pay for transitional and emergency housing, which is a best practice because homeless people don't really do well in these programs. They need a safe place to live. Sometimes they can't go back to where they live. We pay for up to 90 days of transitional housing. And we also have, we actually got approached by a hotel group to give us a discount rate, and that's how we do emergency housing. And I'm talking about like $40 a night type thing. So we can get somebody who suddenly loses their housing, which happens, y'all know how much it happens. I don't have to tell you. It happens a lot. And so they can call their probation officer or call us, and we can get a roof over their head very quickly. So that is our biggest expense. It's our most in-demand expense. And so one of the things that we do, you may be wondering, we are not service providers, clearly, right? We find service providers. And we find housing, we find vendors in the area, but then we tell the probation department, hey, we've got this new sober living down in Galveston. Would y'all go check it out, make sure it's okay? Because they're the ones who have the liability, right? So once they okay that, we have a contract with the vendor and pay them directly, just so we're clear on how this all works. So we have sober living and transitional housing in Fort Bend, not much in Fort Bend, but not much in Fort Bend. Galveston is doing well and opening more and more, and then Harris. And so a lot of Fort Bend folks come up to Harris for the housing, quite frankly. Grief and trauma counseling. This one is key. And this is almost a luxury item, but it is so in demand because once folks get sober and they live a little bit, they're in whatever counseling they're getting through the probation department, they realize that they're really not going to get better until they deal with their early childhood trauma or trauma they've experienced on the streets. And we have a lot of the providers that we use, especially with juveniles, were recommended by the juvenile department, the probation department, because they had used to work there, and then they went out in private practice. So we really rely on the probation department to vet these folks especially, but we have them in, are we doing it in Fort Bend at all yet? Yes, yes. We definitely have a practice that we work with almost exclusively in Houston, and we have really good resources in Galveston, and it's growing. The need is very huge. It's super triggering if you don't deal with the underlying reason for why you're using in the first place, right? So that's our second largest expense. And then incentives, which everybody uses, and we've actually been encouraging kind of free ones, like a fishbowl. Mary will make a fishbowl for a court and put the little piece of paper on there, like a high five from the judge, or you get to be, I don't know, late to docket, or you get a couple of hours off, whatever. But we also do the gift cards. And the gift cards, low amounts, like $10 or $15 at Sonic or Starbucks or H-E-B or Walmart. We do those as well for courts. We also try to help with transportation. And it's just a real challenge in this part of Texas. We do have bus passes in Harris County. In Fort Bend, we've had to use Uber a lot. There's no, that I know of, right? Not really a mass transit system there. And then I came to find out that in Galveston, the buses don't go over the bridge. Well, okay. Not everybody lives on the island, right? I mean, it's absurd. So we do use Uber a lot. Which is expensive, so we have to limit that. And then I don't even think she knows this is on my PowerPoint, but it's so true, the Mary factor, which is talk about helping people get in line with best practices. Mary Covington does that in a very kind way, and she goes to dockets a couple of times a month, and I think the staff knows they can trust her and talk to her, and she will help them. She's been thinking outside the box. I mean, you think about getting a drug court off the ground and trying to find resources for your client. She was doing that at the very beginning, and she's just, she's great. So that's the Mary factor. And then, are y'all familiar with Recovery Capital? Is anybody not familiar with that? Because that is a very cool thing, I think, and it makes the most sense to me as a woman in long-term recovery. Because ultimately, when you get sober, you have to figure out how to live a new life. And I hope you have somebody who has lived experience in your court so you know that. Because it is living a new life, and Recovery Capital is part of that. It's the resources that your clients have. And this might seem like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Are you kidding me, lady? I have to worry about this too. But the deal is, if you don't think about it and don't try to wrap services around these folks, their recovery will be temporary. It's the best way I can say it. I mean, you can get them sober, but then you got to give them something to live for, right? You've got to give them hope. And so Recovery Capital is this concept, and I've got to find my notes because I get these. What do I do with my notes? Okay, well, we're going to wing it too. I'm really on a roll today. So they've divided, the reason I get confused is because personal, social, community, they seem kind of overlapping. But it's the resources, internal and external, that a client has to draw upon when they're finally out of your supervision, right? When they have to go back in the real world and figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to live and who they're going to hang out with. So, personal is health, education, vocational training, if they have any of that. And then social is really one of the most, I think probably the most important, is who are their friends? How is their family? Is their family on board with their recovery? Because that can be the number one sabotage, as we all know. And do they have community support? 12-step, you can say whatever you want, and I know that I guess some of the probation departments we work with can't say 12-step, they can say community groups, but y'all know that can be a real, that's a group that knows what you're going through and that you can socialize with. That's incredibly important. And then finally, community is interesting because it's not just about the resources that are available and the 12-step programs and all that, but it's also the community attitude towards recovery. There are some communities that are more friendly than others, and I'm talking about the stigma again. So how we help with that is that we help send people back to college. We do tuition assistance, and I wish we had more applications, but we probably do 15 to 20 a year. in each county, and it's a game changer. I mean, we have a young woman at UTSA who told her story at our luncheon. She was a straight-A student growing up, no problems at all in the family until her parents got divorced her senior year of high school, and her dad started smoking crack. Like, what? He was like a business owner. He started smoking crack. It's not funny. I don't know why I just laughed. And she moves into an apartment with her mom. She starts going to U of H on a full ride academic scholarship for mechanical engineering and starts partying and gains weight because she's drinking too much beer, and her mom says, hey, try this, and it's meth. You just can't make this up. And so for 20 years, she was on the, couch surfing on the streets doing meth. I don't even know how she survived, but she got arrested a lot and would get sober. She got sent to like Safe P, she got sent to some other place, year sobriety here, year sobriety there, and always back. She gets arrested, finally gets to drug court, finally. And what saved her was both her parents were dead. Both had OD'd. Her mom was sabotaging her every time she got out of custody. So she finally is sober again. She just celebrated 5 years. She is at UTSA, switched to biomedical engineering, and is going to be in their PhD program. Okay? That's what we can do here, y'all. That's what we can do. So I know you're tired, but you got to keep working. Job training is another big one where we will pay for nonprofit training only, not the for-profit rip-off organizations just like HCC or Lone Star. We've done master electricians and plumbers and that kind of thing, even welding. Criminal history cleanup. We wrote a grant to the Texas Bar Foundation to start this because the legislature lets you take it off your record after 2 years of successful completion with a drug court, 5 years for a mental health court, which needs to be addressed by the legislature, and we've tried the last 2 sessions. Makes no sense. But the problem is, how do you have money for a lawyer? How do you have money for that $300 to $400 filing fee, at least in Houston? So we started doing that, and we have treatment court lawyers who really cut their fees and do the paperwork and represent the clients, and then we pay them like $400, and we pay the filing fees. So it's like $700 for us, and it's a game changer. We have a couple of clients who are now able to buy houses. It's a game changer. Even if they're just taking off the most recent offense, at least that gives them a block of time, right, for housing and for jobs. But we also have the lawyers look at everything to see if there's any not guilties. We had a woman who had an ag rob that was dismissed, and she could not get a job. It was dismissed, but all they could see, and it said dismissed, but the employers wouldn't hire her. But that comes off with an expunction, right? So this is a big service that we love to provide. And then this is another thing that y'all can start in your jurisdiction. Because, again, this has to do with my sobriety, but I just know that when I quit drinking, I couldn't go to parties. I had to stay, everything was triggering at the beginning. I just stayed at home for 6 months. And then, I could really only go to movies, except now if you drink, you can't because there's bars in every movie theater. It's just trying to get away from all that and get away from the triggers and the people that you drank with and all that stuff. So who do you hang out with? And so I was talking to another guy who worked for a nonprofit, and we decided to ask our friends who are all working in nonprofits, let's get together and put on some sober events. And I always wanted to make them free because our clients can't afford that, right? So we started the Party Sober Partnership about 3 years ago. And these are the nonprofits that are in it. There's 14 of them, and we all serve very similar populations. Justice involved, but there's the Women's Home is one of our, clearly residential. Do y'all recognize any of these? You might. I'm trying to see. Yeah, Montrose Center, Harris Center, obviously. So we are now up to about 5 events a year. The first one we ever did was a chili cook-off because it's at the rodeo cook-off. Do y'all go to the rodeo in Houston? or any. It is, when I was drinking, I'm like, dear God, this is wild, right? So, I mean, you can't go as a sober person for sure. So we decided to have a chili cook-off the same weekend, and it's been a huge success. 500 or 600 people come to a church where we have a parking lot. It's one of our partners. All we had to do was like, every nonprofit had either those little tents you put up, the church had tables, people could bring their own lawn chairs. We had to pay for a generator and free drinks from H-E-B. If y'all don't have an H-E-B and you're not asking them for stuff, you need to ask them for stuff because they are so generous. They're one of our biggest suppliers. They give us free drinks for this all the time. And so people could enter and win cash prizes. And, oh, I went the wrong way, sorry. So this is our first year. It was like 30 degrees and raining, and we didn't think anybody was gonna come, and we ended up having like 400 people, and we knew that we were onto something. So we had celebrity judges, quote unquote, but we have a state rep and a prima ballerina, I don't know, and there's our now mayor, he was a senator then. And then every nonprofit had a little tent, and at first we probably had 20 teams, I think. And these are the checks we do. We have one of our women is a graphic designer. She works at a housing place, but she's a graphic designer and prints t-shirts and stuff for us at cost. And she printed these big checks, and that woman in the middle is a drug court participant. So we've always had drug court teams, and now we are up to 35 teams. We had one recently, I think, where Galveston and Fort Bend were with us as well. And it's just, we have a DJ too. We do pay a DJ to come and have music there too. So that's a great idea. This is another cheap thing to do. If you have an auditorium that can be donated that has a projector, we did a movie night where H-E-B once again gave us candy, let us go shopping for candy. We bought those big bags of popcorn, which kind of suck, but they're cheap. And we gave free popcorn and candy, and people could bring their kids. And so the first year we did 3 of these movies, and I just took some pictures we had different themes. Like for Spider-Man, we dressed up like, we had a photo booth because we have a woman whose daughter does photo booths, and she did it for free. You just have to ask, and people want to help. And so people could have fun with their kids, right? It's something to do that was free that they could do with their kids. And then the Rally for Recovery, y'all should have this around the state. And we, the first year, got asked to put it on because the guy who usually did it passed away and didn't know what we were getting into, but the state gives you money, or they did until this year. Does anybody do Rallies for Recovery? And did you have one in your county? Because I know they have them in El Paso, Austin, Midland, Galveston has their own, we have one. Anyway, it's like supposed to be celebration of Recovery Month. And we had speakers, we always have a DJ. We asked food trucks to come, and they just get what they make. They have incentive just to come and park, and we had free drinks again. And so we've been doing that every year. And we've had it at the Botanic Garden because we got money from the state, but this year funding was cut. So we fortunately had a partner in the Party Sober, the Women's Home, who has a whole whole housing building where we just adapted it for that. So it ended up being, instead of $14,000, $1,000. So I think we're gonna keep having it at the Women's Home. It turned out great. And then we also do I know this sounds like a lot. I'm just trying to give you ideas. A sober music festival, y'all. Trying to go to a music festival sober is really brutal, right? So we found bands. If you can find bands in recovery, they'll come and do it for free. The first year, everybody was free. The second year, the most we paid anybody was $750. And we made our money. We did charge for this $20 a ticket. We've had it this past year. We made it free. We did it at the Council on Recovery, and we had money from, what did we have money from? I guess from the festival the year before. We just don't spend a lot of money, so we had enough to hire some people to come. But that was at White Oak Music Hall here in Houston. And then The last thing we do is a Texans football game, which is coming up on November 9th. They approached us because they wanted to do a day of recovery. Can you believe that? And we sell the tickets for $58 on our website, and they did win. So I think now it's a bargain if you want to come. We have a sober tailgate, which is absolutely hysterical, to go wade through those drunken tailgating, no offense to anybody who tailgates, and to find like this little oasis of sobriety right here. Here we are, you know, we're listening to music, playing games. I mean, it's great. It's really good. So we're trying to normalize fun. Oh, we did have, this is our low-key flex. We had Jeff Bagwell come talk at one of our, did y'all know he's in recovery? Houston Astro, Hall of Fame, if you don't know. He's in recovery. He will talk about his sobriety. It was great. And there's our picture at the Texans game, the first year we did it. Okay. This is, and I have this on here. I would love if anybody has an alumni group that they're proud of to come up and see me. I'm like now using you. I apologize, but we really want to get an alumni program started that we can move to all the courts. And our idea is not just to have an alumni group for drug court, mental health court. We want one for all the treatment court clients of a county. And Mary found a really good one in New Mexico where a graduate is paid a stipend to organize the meetings, to find a place to kind of have an agenda of whatever they want to do. And so we're trying to pilot that in Fort Bend County right now. And because it's a smaller jurisdiction, they're very, the people in the courts are very close, the clients, and I think that's our best shot to have a successful program. But if you have a good one, we would love to know about it. Yeah, and the graduate director, somebody who's in recovery. And our idea is like to celebrate holidays, like have a Valentine's party, have a Christmas party, or have a holiday party, or Thanksgiving. But also to have maybe somebody come in and talk about how to buy a car, or how to buy, how to balance, well, nobody has a checkbook, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about, useful things that they might have missed learning. And then here's shameless self-promotion. I was tired of writing blogs that nobody read, so I started a podcast, and I think the subject matter, really the reason I'm bringing it up is I think the subject matter would be of interest to you because it's all treatment court graduates that I'm interviewing. And I also have a judge on there, and I just posted one about a defense attorney who works in the courts as well. And I do this, again, to talk very frankly about addiction as a disease, hello, and not anybody's fault. Same with mental health issues, and to promote the treatment courts and let people know that there's help in the criminal justice system because nobody knows about these courts, y'all. It's very rare. Every time I go, I talk a lot about this, and people are like, what are you talking about? Oh, we have those in Houston? Yeah, you do. So I have a couple of clips, and if they don't work, I quit and I leave, okay?
A rap sheet that's 16 pages long.
Can y'all turn it up?
You would not believe.
No,
I don't know
would
how
not.
many times. I don't know how many times it is, but it's 16 pages of just pettiness.
Yeah.
Pettiness, just looking
In and
at
out.
it. Mm-hmm. In
It's
and out.
the
The revolving door,
door.
yes.
That's
Exactly.
what I talk about with treatment courts. It stops that because it's a exercise in insanity to keep just jailing you when it's either mental health issues or substance use with no treatment. I mean, was it ever offered to you before you got to felony mental health court?
No.
No treatment?
No treatment at all. No. I would just get out and go right back. I wouldn't even go home to my parents. I would just go back to the neighborhood to go hustle some more. Sometimes I would hustle enough money from the jail back to the hood to buy me some crack by the time I got back to the neighborhood. So, yeah, no,
You were
there
just
was no
waiting to
treatment.
get
Just
out
waiting.
to do it again.
Yes, exactly.
Right. That's
all.
that is the problem right there.
That's Precious. She's she graduated from mental health court. On her graduation day, her fiance proposed to her in the middle of the docket. It's like I've never seen that in all my years in the courthouse. It was awesome. And so we've stayed in touch. And of course, she's a peer recovery coach because that's what most of our graduates end up doing. And again, that is something we pay for. It's about $750, the training, and we will pay for that. And it gives them a career with no stigma and the ability to help people, which is the best way to stay sober is to help other people, right? And then this is Cedrina, who's a drug court graduate, also a peer recovery coach. She's like a supervisor now at a local nonprofit.
Because I started using when I was 19. Okay. I started using crack cocaine when I was 19.
How did that start, by the way?
I was drinking at the age of 9. I have alcoholism in my family.
Oh my God.
My grandfather, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather on both sides of my family. And so it's quite natural that somebody would become an addict.
Of course.
And I became an alcoholic. You know, it started off with, you know, family members saying when we have gatherings, can you go give me a beer? Mm-hmm. Yes. Open it and I'd take a drink, you know, and I found out that after a little while, I started enjoying that, and to the point to where as I got older, I started having my own beer. You know, my family gave me permission, you know, to get you a beer and go sit down, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, you can't be with the adults, but go get you a beer and go sit down somewhere and watch TV or do something, you know.
Yeah.
So that started off, and I was a full-fledged alcoholic by the time I was 18.
There's the QR code that I'm quite proud of because I made it myself, and it has, this is, you know, I'm almost 60 and I'm having to do all this this technical stuff, but it goes to a link tree. I know what a link tree is, and it's got all the links to this podcast if you're interested. I'm going to leave it up for a second, and you know what? I have 8 minutes, and I'm actually done with what I wanted to say, and I would love to take questions or let y'all leave early if Judge Carr will let you. Any questions, or are you just like, we can't do this? Okay. Say that again? Yeah, and I know. Yes. Sure. I can email it to you. I can give you my card if you want to email me, and I can email it to you. I'm happy to share my PowerPoint.
I had a couple of questions, and I may have missed it, but is this only for adults, or
No,
these programs are for?
We help juveniles and really enjoy doing so. Yes.
And in helping juveniles or adults, is there anything that's like for the entire family? We heard yesterday from someone whose spouse was incarcerated, and she really talked about how it affects the entire family.
Right, I heard that too, and that was incredibly moving. So I would say that when we didn't know this when we started helping juveniles, that we were basically helping the whole family. And you have to remember, we started in COVID, and they were losing their apartments and electricity. The kids had laptops from school, right? And they couldn't do their homework. So we started paying utility bills, which we did not think we were going to do. We paid rent. So we helped the family that way. The other coolest thing one of my favorites, and I know Mary's too, is with the gang court. Getting kids out of gangs is so dangerous. I mean, we've had clients who've gotten their houses shot up. We had a guy who got kidnapped and put into a cage and his head shaved. I'm not making this up, and these are juveniles. He was trying to get out of the gang because he's in trouble and he's in an anti-gang court. So we were visiting a docket and hearing a mom say, I really want to move, but we can't afford it. And that's when like a light bulb went off and said, that's what we can do. Because we live in such a gigantic county, we can move them from Pasadena to Katy, and the geographical separation seems to work. So we'll pay the first month's rent and the security deposit. And the party sober events also. We always encourage kids to come, and we have face painters and a kids section at everything we do. Okay.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I missed the first part. I was checking out, sorry. But
Okay.
Your work is incredible, so thank you
Thank you, Judge.
for everything. I'm curious about the funding and how you get the monies from stakeholders. Do you have a strategy? The housing for us and my mental health specialty court in El Paso is just, it's a problem, and without housing, and I can't, it's hard to justify having them go to a homeless shelter because they're not gonna, they'll relapse within a hot minute, right? So how do you persuade or encourage, non-judicial stakeholders or non-legal stakeholders to really buy into this whole recovery and whatnot?
The way I do it is I tell them that they are coming back to live with us. Do you want them to come back homeless, addicted, not on their meds, going right back out to buy crack? Or do you want them to come out having gone through one of these courts with a job and a place to live, a safe, sober place to live, and supporting their kids? And people seem to understand that. We do have 2 fundraisers where we're talking to normal people, non-criminal justice people, and that, having somebody like Crystal I just described, who was on the streets and now is going to get her PhD, really people are going, oh my God. I try to tell people, I've seen with my own eyes, and I know you have, that there are no disposable people.
Right.
That everybody can be redeemed, and everybody has if you give them the right help, and these courts do that. And so just to introduce them to that whole model, and then to have concrete examples, which you do, of graduates. I mean, not everybody makes it. I'm not a crazy person, but that was really inappropriate for this conference. I did not mean, you know what I mean. But what we do is so important, and we have such great stories. That's another reason I started the podcast, to bring awareness to that.
Okay.
But we also, I will say this, y'all, when we're writing grants, we're the only people doing this work. We're the only people helping this population, and foundations know that because they have to read through all of these applications. And so they see what we're doing, and they see the successes. We get funding. We do quite well with foundations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please let us know how we can help. And that's my next slide. Actually, okay. I didn't know when I was speaking. I thought y'all might need dinner recommendations. This has a list of certain cuisines, and it was gonna be really good. And I have a list, wherever my notes are, to tell you the restaurant recommendations. So if you want one for lunch, come up to me and I will tell you where to go eat. Thank you very much. This is the slide I was talking about, right here. My email, my phone, our website. We will answer questions. I don't know when we'll take on another county, but like I said, 2.75 employees. We're kind of at our max right now, but we're happy to talk about talk this through with y'all. So best of luck. Thank you for what you do. Y'all are changing lives every day. Do not forget that. Thank you very much.